Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
It's great to be here, Eric. Thanks for having me, man.
You know, we've been wanting to get you on here for a long time, and I've obviously followed your career over the years, and you've done some incredible things with so many bands. We'll talk about that later on in the interview. But first off, you got a brand new album out, Ride. And you and I were talking about this to where, you kind of spend your time, predominantly in Denmark now, where you were based in LA for a long time. But this album, you've really, shared your heart in these songs and lyrics this time.
Well, when the pandemic happened, we were in our house in LA, and we have this house in Denmark here. And the house, I'm in it right now, and we're in a little fishing village of 500 people on the shore of the North Sea. And we felt like we could come here and be a lot safer, pandemic wise. And we thought we'd be over here for a month or something, and we ended up for 2 years. And, but when it was time to make a record, I actually went back to our house in California, actually in Huntington Beach, California. And I stayed in the house by myself and kind of sat around and reflected on my life and sitting around during the pandemic. I'd done a lot of thinking and a lot of remembering of things. And so when I wrote this thing, I was pretty much in a zone of reflection and of remembering and wanting to sort of get some stuff out off my chest. And now when I listen to it, I'm kind of like, oh boy, I guess I did.
But I think also, coming out of the pandemic and everything too, Walter, I think so many of us, kind of reflect and look back on the time before that. But, you shared things, that were hard during your life, and even with relationship wise between you and your wife that you've been with for so long. And all the songs, once again, I told you this before we started the interview, I can't believe you're 70 years old because your voice, your songwriting, your playing do not sound like that on this album, Ride.
Well, that's a very nice compliment, and I appreciate it. And I will tell you, when I'm playing music and I'm playing with my band, I feel like a kid. I really do. But I have this saying, like I just played this past weekend in Holland at a gig called Boss Pop. We played with Beth Hart and Sting and a bunch of other people. Wow. It was probably 25,000 people. And we came off and I said, guys, when I was up there, man, I felt like I was 25 and now I feel like I'm 95. As soon as we're done, I'm in the dressing room kind of, ready to fall over. But I like to, when I play, I want to put everything I have into it. I can't see holding back,
And you've always done that. And once again, you started playing guitar at a young age at 14. And then it's the amazing history, Walter, that some people may not know, to where you were a sideman for some of the biggest blues legends like John Lee Hooker, and Percy, and the list goes on and on, Big Mama Thornton. And you really cut your teeth with these blues legends, before you moved on to things, other bands you were known for, such as Canned Heat and John Mayall's Bluesbreakers and everything, before you evolved into the Walter Trout Band.
Well, I spent a lot of time in LA as a sideman. I moved here or moved there. I moved to California in 1974 to seek a musical career. I'd been working a day job in Philly and I had a band and it just was going nowhere. And I realized I'm going to have to relocate and really take a stab at a career. So I drove to LA and I was not there that long before I lucked my way into playing with the late, great Jesse Ed Davis, who played with John Lennon and Bob Dylan and George Harrison and Jackson Browne and all these people. And I got to play rhythm in Jesse's band for 2 years. Wow. And that was an incredible musical education. And then from there, I started being a sideman with all these blues acts, so John Lee Hooker, Big Mama Thornton, Percy Mayfield, Lowell Fulsom, Eddie Cleanhead Vincent, Bo Diddley, O.B. Wright, the soul singer. I played with Joe Tex, the soul singer. I played with Bobby Hatfield of the high voice in the Righteous Brothers. That was fun. It was just charts playing chords, but I was up there playing Ebb Tide thinking, I'm playing with one of the Righteous Brothers, man. I got to pinch myself, So I was a sideman for a long time. And then I got into Canned Heat and did that for 5 years. And then I got in to John Mayall's band and did that for another 5 years. So by the time I went solo, I was already 38 years old. I'd been at it a long time,
Yeah. And you paid your dues, but also I got to brag on you, Walter, to where, a number of publications around the world have rated you as one of the top 5 guitarists and or blues guitarists in the world. What does that feel like now, at this age, and you're still going out to be rated? I think in one of the polls, Walter, you tied with Brian May of Queen.
Yeah, that was a BBC poll. I have a thing with the press, and I was reading an interview with Bob Dylan years ago, and he said that he doesn't believe the good stuff, because if he believes that, he also has to believe the bad stuff. And I may get rated as one of the top 5 in the world or something, but then there'll be somebody who writes a review of one of my shows and says, well, this guy's terrible. So you have to take all that with a grain of salt. And what it comes down to is you just have to do the best work you can do. And you have to be honest in how you play. You can't censor whatever impulses you have. If I feel like playing one note, I'll play one note. If I feel like playing 10,000, I'll play the 10,000 and not censor what comes through from, the universe up there. And so all of that is very nice. I've got a whole shelf full of awards in my house. But what's really important is I'll get a message from somebody and they'll say, your song meant so much to my husband, one of your songs, and he passed on and we played it at his funeral. Now that means more than any review or any chart position, that if your music can mean something to somebody.
Well, and I think, you've always been underrated because, just such an incredible player, Walter, and tasteful in the way you've approached your songs and your music, but also you've got an international fan base. Even though you were based out of the United States for so long, it's like, you sell out concerts and tours worldwide.
Well, I've been at it like this. My new album is my 30th. And, I went solo in 1989, but it's funny. My first album in 1989, my first solo album was only out in Scandinavia. Wow. So my solo career actually started in Scandinavia, and it kind of just kind of moved from there. And my second album, which came out in Europe only, but it came out all over Europe. I had a #1 MTV radio hit on that. And that I'm a one-hit wonder. I had this song, and I still have the charts that have me at #1, and then Bon Jovi, Madonna, and Bryan Adams. And but I did it once, but when I did that, I was able to get quite a large following, and I've been able to hold on to a lot of them, which is I'm very blessed and very grateful for.
Well, and I was thinking also, certainly through the trials and tribulations of your life, Walter, back when the documentary came out, back when the biography came out, I know your wife, Marie, also wrote a great book on the blues, but it's like, still a survivor from a liver transplant. And I read an article where you were talking about how fortunate you feel compared to somebody like a Greg Allman who didn't get that much time after his, but you're still alive. You're still writing and performing and touring.
Well, I'm grateful doesn't even quite describe it, because I'm on this past May the 26th, it was my 8th anniversary of my liver transplant. Wow. And that saved my life. I was in the hospital for 8 months. I lost 120 pounds. I had brain damage. I couldn't speak. I couldn't walk. And at the last minute, they gave me that liver, and that saved my life. But then they sent me home, and I had to relearn how to speak. I had to relearn how to walk. But the real problem for me, I sat on the couch, and one of my sons handed me my guitar, and I realized at that moment that because of the brain damage, it had been wiped clean from my memory. I didn't know how to play anymore.
Wow.
So I had to start over, and I taught myself all over again from scratch. It took me a year of every day working on it.
Right. But it's been, such a gift because you've come through this. I think just like talking about your new album, Ride, it's like there's so many great songs on here. And, in the past, obviously, because you have so many friends and everything that want to come and join you on albums, I understand you only had one guest on this album, and it was mainly for the use of his pinky.
Oh, well, that was my tour manager. That was my tour manager, Anthony Grisham, because I've broken my pinky here in 3 different places. Oh. So it's useless. My last 4 albums I've made with 3 fingers, right? So the Chuck Berry rhythm, I can't play it.
Right.
And so I had him come in on the song Leave It All Behind, which I love. I said, Anthony, you got to come in and play Chuck Berry rhythm. So he did that. He actually did the same thing on a song on Ordinary Madness, my last album. Right. So he's on my last 2 records playing a rhythm guitar part that I am no longer capable of playing, But what I decided when I broke the finger is I'll play what I'm able to play, and what I cannot play, I won't play.
Right.
So,
with your tour, with this new album, with everything you're doing, Walter, where's the best place for our viewers to go for your website, social media, everything Walter Trout?
Well, my website is it's one word, waltertrout.com. And it's got, the web store. It's got all the tour dates. It's got a biography. It's got all the stuff you need to have on there.
Our viewers definitely need to get a copy of the new album, Ride. I hope this goes to vinyl also, Walter. And I know
it is on vinyl. Yes.
Oh, good. Excellent. And you know what? I think this is one of those albums, and so many of your past, albums, this being the 30th, just sounds so great on vinyl. And I know a lot of people will add you to their playlist and everything else, but hope to see you live on tour with the new album, Ride. Walter Trout, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Eric. I appreciate it very much, man. Thank you.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of a Bobby Bones Show.